The trail of the 3rd Army and the 19th Tactical Air Command of the 8th Air Force is marked by more than 40,000 white crosses, 40,000 dead Americans.
We were young and soldiers called to dedicate our lives in the name of God and country. Do what's just, boys. Go do what's right. A hot band of brothers waiting on our chance to add one more page unto the victory dance. Here am I, Lord, send me, send me. Victory lies in the spirit of the lives of the men who died for me.
Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send? And who will go for us?" And I said, "Here am I. Send me."
This is Michael Broderick, Marine Corps veteran, actor, and Gallant Few board member. You are listening to the New American Veteran. Now here's Karl Monger.
Hey, this is Karl Monger with Gallant Few and the New American Veteran. It is my great pleasure today to welcome Bonnie Carroll to the show. Bonnie is the founder of TAPS, Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors, and an all-around great American, wonderful person, U.S. Air Force Reserve veteran, which I did not realize until I read your bio, and you've accomplished a lot of things. So, Bonnie, welcome to the show, and also please let me offer my condolences on the loss of your husband, and congratulate you on how you've turned that into something that is helping so many people.
Great, thank you so much. It's good to be here.
Well, it's an honor to have you on the show. We have a mutual friend in Jill Stevenson. She's a dear friend of mine, and so I'm glad that she reached out to you and asked you to be on.
Oh, Jill is wonderful. And, you know, Jill has been part of TAPS for a number of years, and it's been extraordinary to watch her turn her pain around to help so many others. I absolutely love the book that she has written, and it's a beautiful testament to her growth and to her son's life.
I have to show it off here real quick because I have my own copy. I just got in the mail late last week. So it's on my desk because it's number one on my list to start reading as soon as I'm done with the current one. The way that this show goes, the New American Veteran focuses on veteran transition primarily. So I'm really interested in the first one which is your transition from the Air Force into, and I don't know if you retired from the Air Force and then founded TAPS or if there was a gap in time there, but I'd like to have you tell us about that a little bit, as well as your service, things that you did while you were in the Air Force. And then I want to talk about TAPS, what that is, what it involved starting it, and maybe you can give some examples of how you've helped some folks and then how people can both support your organization and if they need assistance or want to volunteer, how they can reach out and do that. So that's a whole lengthy list to cover here in about 15 minutes. But let's start off with tell me a little bit about your service.
I was so fortunate to serve. My husband was the Assistant Adjutant General of the Alaska Army National Guard. And at that time, I had the opportunity to serve as a logistics officer commanding the motor pool in the Air National Guard. So very tragically, when Tom was killed in an Army National Guard plane crash in 1992, you know, I really found tremendous support from my airmen. You know, it was that motor pool family that pulled together and got me through in just so many ways. You know, I had my civilian job, and as many reservists and guardsmen do, you're living those two lives, but it was really my Guard family that was there for me.
How long did you spend when you were in the Air Guard?
You know, I spent 16 years in the Air Guard and 14 years in the Air Force Reserve. So altogether, 30 years of service. And I transitioned. The only reason I left the Air Guard was actually to go into the Air Force Reserve and take the position of Chief of Air Force Casualty. I was following in that job a dear friend, a fellow widow, who was also dual service, and she had asked me to consider that, and they had worked it out. So that was really kind of the only job I would have left the Guard for, and it was a tremendous experience. Then do some things proactively as a survivor within Air Force casualty.
Now, we're doing this interview the day after Memorial Day. So can you just take a couple of minutes and tell us about your husband?
My husband, Brigadier General Tom Carroll, was an extraordinary leader. He was a tremendous just inspiration to his soldiers, inspiration to his family. He loved unconditionally. He led from the front. He changed the world in so many ways. We met actually over a Guard operation. The time I was working in Washington, D.C. in the West Wing of the White House, and he was up in Barrow, Alaska, where the Guard was involved in this whale rescue. So President Reagan had asked me to see if there was someone in the Guard network that I knew and could see how the White House could assist in this rescue. Tom and I met, and the rest is history.
Oh, that is absolutely amazing. What a cool story. I don't know anybody until now that met over a whale rescue. So, yeah. And you went on to work in a couple of White Houses.
I did. I actually worked in 3 different administrations for both President Bush's and for President Reagan. And then have served now in advisory councils and a presidential task force since that time. And I'm still serving. Right now, I'm currently on the Defense Health Board for DOD, and then the VA. I'm on the VA Advisory Committee for National Cemeteries.
Oh, very nice. The VA's done a lot of things recently to spruce up the national cemeteries. You know, they had kind of a bad spell there not too long ago. And so I'm impressed at the things that I see. So thank you for your leadership in that role as well. In forming TAPS, was there a gap in the services that were available for the survivors of these tragedies? What was it that started the need for TAPS?
You know, in the early 90s, when my husband was killed, I went looking for the kind of organization I knew existed for other types of loss in our society, and was stunned to find that it didn't exist for military surviving families. So just in struggling to recover, to cope, I reconnected with the other 7 widows who lost their husbands on that same day in that same incident. And we found that what we had was this incredible peer support. You know, we really found comfort with each other, and it was tremendously healing just to be in each other's presence. So we thought, well, gosh, let's create this network. Let's kind of bottle the magic that we had found. And we looked at other peer-based support organizations. How did they work? How did they bring comfort? And then taking that a step further over the course of 2 years, I went back to some of my White House connections, talked to the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Veterans Affairs, really dug into the kind of support and resources that were out there at the time for surviving families. There were 4 areas that were not addressed and had never been addressed, and to this day are only addressed by TAPS. And that's just simply peer-based support that's so important. We now connect over 70,000 surviving family members, and we're getting new family members at a rate of about, this year it'll be about 5,000. That's 14 new family members per day. We also have a 24/7 helpline that is answered by trained peers. Extraordinary. It's support in those darkest hours, and it's support on the weekends. Mother's Day, Father's Day. You know, grief is not 9 to 5. We also offer community-based care, grief support services, connections to casework assistance, including emergency financial support to survivors. So all the things the government cannot do. Our board member, General Martin Dempsey, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs, said it so well. He said, you know, the military does funeral honors, providing that final resting place, administering benefits better than anyone in any country. But what we don't do, we as the military don't do, can't do, is provide that ongoing emotional support. So TAPS is that complement, and it's filled that gap.
That's absolutely wonderful. And one of the things that when I left the military in 1993 until 9/11, and when I reconnected with a lot of my friends that were still on active duty at that time, I didn't understand the pace of deployment. I didn't understand the stress that they were under until I reconnected and saw it. And because of that, then I started connecting with some of the surviving spouses in the Gold Star families. And it astounds me how few people truly understand not only the loss, the magnitude of that loss, but the impact of that loss on those family members. There are Gold Star fathers, Gold Star mothers, Gold Star wives their lives have just been absolutely ripped apart, and they don't know how to go forward. And so that makes TAPS just a crucial addition. I mean, God bless you and your team for what you do, because without that, it would be an even greater tragedy, because we would lose a lot of these family members because their pain is just so great. And when you're in an environment like the National Guard or Reserve and you have a loss, you're not in the middle of an active duty family. And that can make the loss even more acute because they're not surrounded by that community. So TAPS provides just an absolute, I can't even say how important the function is that it provides. So thank you for doing that. How do people, if they want to learn more about TAPS, or they want to volunteer or become associated with TAPS, how do they do that?
We have a wonderful Facebook page. It's at TAPS.org, TAPS.org. We, of course, got our website, TAPS.org, and our phone is answered 24/7, 800-959-TAPS.
There are folks out there that may wonder if they're eligible for TAPS services. Do you have a list of qualifications for someone? How do they, part of that 70,000 people that you serve that are in your network, what qualifications do you have to?
Our mission is to care for all those grieving the loss of a military loved one, and that's incredibly broad. You know, if you are brokenhearted, if you are mourning the loss of a military member, regardless of how or where they died, or when they served, or how they served, or what their status is, we're here to support. To be perfectly honest, we get calls from folks who don't even have a military connection, and we will help them find the right resources. We always say we are America's family of those who have suffered a loss of a loved one whose life included selfless service to this country. And if we aren't the best place to find support, we will get you to that right place. We also add additional layers of support, which is wonderful. We have military families who call us who may have lost an infant to a SIDS death. So we'll provide grief support as a military community, but we'll also connect them to a SIDS group. We have military members who have lost their civilian spouse, lost a child, lost a loved one. We have battle buddies who come to us quite often through our military mentor program, where they volunteer to support a grieving child, but they themselves are grieving a fallen friend. So it's a very broad mission statement. You know, grief is not a physical injury. It's not a mental illness. It's not something you can take a pill for or put a bandage on. Grief is a broken heart. And what we can do to resolve that is to honor our loved one, weave their legacy into our life. And that's what we do at TAPS. We remember and we honor. And this Memorial Day is extraordinarily meaningful to have over 2,000 family members together at our 23rd annual TAPS National Gathering to commemorate the lives lived.
I'm speechless. I don't even have anything else to say. What did I miss? What would you like to include in the message that I send out to everyone about TAPS?
Oh gosh, that this is it's a nonprofit organization. The people who work for us and execute the mission are survivors themselves who have done advanced degrees in social work or counseling. That we are a family. We are a family who find healing in each other and who further our own healing by providing support to those who are newly bereaved. It is this wonderful network where we bring survivors in to become trained peer mentors. So someone who is at least a year and a half, 2 years beyond their own loss will be trained to then provide support, or as we say, companion, someone newly bereaved. In that way, I mean, it's a force multiplier, as we say in the military. So we really have limitless capacity, because everyone then is becoming that wounded healer. And in so, they are honoring their own life, their own loss, their own legacy.
Can you talk real quick about the importance of that purpose that you provide that grieving person after they have gone through that initial period, the importance of that for their own healing and growth as they go forward?
We found that meaning and purpose is so critical. It's critical to the human spirit. It really is what brings us back to life. So many of our military mentors who are grieving the loss of many fallen comrades came home and lacked that in their life. We've had several who actually had a suicidal ideation or suicide attempt, and then were kind of brought to TAPS to volunteer, sometimes unwillingly, but friends dragged them along, and they volunteered to go through the training and become a support. And then all of a sudden, they have a 7-year-old wrapping their arms around them and looking at them and sharing their own pain and saying, I need you. I need you present in my life. I need you to hear me and be my friend. And it's extraordinary. As I was saying goodbye to some of the mentors as they were leaving to go back home, many going to far off places in the country, this particular soldier was on his way back to South Korea to his duty assignment. He'd come all the way to work at the big grief camp. And he showed me a framed photograph that his little mentee, we call him, his little boy, had given him. And the card said, thank you for being my friend. And thank you for listening to me. And thank you for letting me hear you. And it was just written in this childlike language, and it went on and on about just how important this soldier was to this child over the course. They'd been, friends now for over a year. And he said, I'm going to frame this. He said, this is one of my most prized possessions. He said, this, he was at a low point in my life, and he said, this just reminds me every day that it matters.
That is, when you get stuck in your grief, when you're mourning a battle buddy, and I deal with this all the time, you think that your pain is the worst pain in the world. And when you are able to connect with someone else who has equal or greater pain, that puts things in perspective for you. And reaching out to help someone else like that is tremendously healing and important for that person. So, Bonnie, you're amazing. Thank you so much for being on the New American Veteran. Thank you for all that you do for our community and the extended community. And it's been an honor to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. It's been great to be here. I appreciate it. Thank you.
What do you stand to lose when you make the choice to drink and drive? Your career? The people that you love the most? Your ability to walk? Your ability to use your hands? The list goes on and on. What do you stand to gain when you make the choice to not drink and drive? You stand to gain everything. I made the choice to drink and drive, and that's some of the things I lost. Learn from my mistakes. Make the right choice. Don't drink and drive. Rangers lead the way.
That beautiful rendition of Taps is a public domain recording created and recorded by an employee of the United States government. It is open source and not under copyright protection. Kenny Thomas' song Send Me is used by permission of Kenny Thomas. Isaiah 6:8 was read by Tim Abel. Thank you, Michael Broderick, for the introduction. All work is original or used by permission. This has been a production of Gallant Fuse, the New American Veteran, a member of the Heroes Media Group. All rights reserved.